Thanks for tuning in to Capital City News, your connection to Salt Lake City government. I'm your host, Poonam Kumar. On today's show, we'll be interviewing Rick Rasmussen with the Civilian Review Board, and our History Minute is about the life of architect Richard Kletting. Let's start off with our legislative update and look back. At the March 22nd meeting, the council discussed proposed changes to the city's regulations for plants and structures in park strips. The changes would slightly increase the maximum allowed height of plants and structures in park strips to 22 inches, with some exceptions, and would require an irrigation system around trees when rocks are used in the park strip. The council will hold a public hearing on this item on April 19th and take action at a later date. The council also discussed an ordinance that would allow excess dwelling units that have existed prior to 1995 to be officially recognized by the city. The council will hold a public hearing on this item on April 26th and will take action at a later date. Mayor Biskupski and council members were on hand to help Google open up a new headquarters for their fiber efforts here in Salt Lake City. There was a ribbon cutting at the new location and a promise for new gigabyte service for some residents as soon as the end of the year. For more information, visit fiber.google.com/Salt Lake City. Mayor Jackie Biskupski issued her first proclamation on Tuesday, March 29th, declaring it Dr. Kristen Rees and Maggie Snyder Day in Salt Lake City. The ceremony honored the two women who provided pioneering and compassionate health care for people with HIV and AIDS during the early years of the epidemic here in Salt Lake City and County. Council members were proud to help the mayor in recognizing Women's History Month. The council passed a joint resolution with the mayor supporting the United Nations-sponsored Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination. The city hosted its first Mayor's Night In open house where residents had the opportunity to meet one-on-one with Mayor Biskupski and her senior staff. For more information and to reserve your spot, call 801-535-7704. The city was proud to celebrate the opening of the Regional Athletic Complex. The kickoff event featured a variety of fun activities for the whole family. The Regional Athletic Complex is a world-class venue of 140 acres, featuring 16 multi-purpose fields, a top-level stadium field, restrooms, and a concession area. The state-of-the-art facility is built to support not just local athletic teams, but large regional and national competitions and tournaments, offering premier playing experience here in Salt Lake City. For more information on the field rental process, visit slcathleticcomplex.com or call 801-972-7883. And now Rick Rasmussen with the City Civilian Review Board is here to tell us about the board's role, its function, and how they provide oversight to the police department on behalf of Salt Lake City residents.
Salt Lake City is one of roughly 150-odd municipalities across the country that have engaged a version of police oversight that involves citizens of their community. The Civilian Review Board model in use here in Salt Lake City is one of the most progressive and inclusive models that are out there. Well, the main premise for the Civilian Review Board is so that the average citizen knows that someone other than other officers are investigating allegations of misconduct. I'm completely independent of the city, independent from the police department and from the elected officials. I'm not given guidance, nor would I accept guidance on how to conduct an investigation. So what I do is I take in the allegations of misconduct. I refer them in accordance with the police department or in accordance with the ordinance to the police department for filing, and once they're filed, then an investigation occurs simultaneously with the police department doing it collaterally with myself on a typical type of allegation. On a serious allegation or a more serious allegation, something like an officer-involved shooting, there'll be the internal affairs investigation, CRB's investigation, the outside police agency's investigation, and the DA's office investigation, all looking at slightly different parts of that puzzle. There are 14 members of the board, 2 from each council district, 7 council districts, 14 members. They apply through the mayor's office. The mayor then does a brief background investigation and then forwards those names onto the council, who then make the decision to add them to the board. What the board actually does is it sits and listens to the case presentation. It's provided to them both in writing, and then they get together a panel of 5 are randomly selected to hear each individual case. And then they decide, they're the jury, to find out if the officer or employee's conduct was within or not within policy. The ordinance says that in order for the Civilian Review Board to become involved, a complaint needs to be made with Internal Affairs. That's the establishing ordinance. So when they contact me, I direct them to Internal Affairs to advise them that they have spoken to the Civilian Review Board and were referred, please open a case. That happens, it's electronically transmitted to me as the second it's opened, and I have unfettered access to all the evidence involved in each of those cases. I'm the only designated full-time city employee. There has to be somebody who has the technical expertise to be able to undertake an investigation, narrow the focus to the allegation, how that allegation relates to the policy, allowing the jury, that 5-member panel, to decide if the officer acted correctly or incorrectly. You can go to the city website and look for us. We have an extensive website, and we publish a quarterly report that details every allegation that was put forth during that 3-month period, so they can see every type of complaint and what action was taken in each of those complaints. And it also directs them to us. It has bios on each of the individuals involved, so their citizen representative from their council district very well may be a neighbor. Then they can contact us, email, telephone, in person.
And now it's time for our History Minute.
Born in Germany in 1858, Richard Karl August Kletting became Utah's most important architect in the period surrounding the turn of the century. After a stint in the German army and as a draftsman in Paris, Kletting made his way to Salt Lake City, and within one day of being in town, he got a job working on the plans for the University of Deseret. This began a long line of important architectural offerings from Kletting. He designed the original Saltaire in 1893, the Salt Palace, and a variety of homes that still stand today, including Fisher Mansion. In 1912, he won the design competition to build the Utah Capitol, which was dedicated in 1916. Kletting was known as the Dean of Utah Architecture, helping to define the look of the city in a variety of styles over the years. But he also had other hobbies, including a dedication to education. At the behest of local businessmen, he opened the city's first night school, teaching geometry, algebra, languages, and science. He was also responsible for cataloging the Salt Lake City Library at the time. He lived in Salt Lake City until his death in 1943 when he was struck by a motorist. Today, we can see the influence of his work from one end of the city to the other, and the Capitol building remains the center of Utah's government and cuts a striking view from miles away all the way down State Street.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Capital City News. We hope you tune in next week to stay up to date on all the latest. For SLC TV, I'm Poonam Kumar.